Walk through the British countryside and all around you you'll see period homes with wonderful original features. And if I said moat to you, you'd probably think castle. What about if I said timber frame? You'd probably say Tudor. But a farmhouse that's got all those original features together, now that's a home with an interesting history. I'm passionate about old buildings. Look at that. And fascinated by history. Do you want to have a look in?
Oh yeah.
In this series, the past is brought to life as I join 10 homeowners on a journey back in time. I'll be discussing design dilemmas. You never quite know what you're going to find. Offering inspiration.
Wow.
And as they restore the original features of their homes... What a fireplace! I'll be uncovering the lives of the people who once lived there.
It's fascinating how one house can tell such a story.
In this episode, I'm joining Graham and Jo Hughes on their ambitious mission.
I think, in a way, this will probably be our only restoration project, because I think this will be our life project.
Of transforming a small space within an old timber-framed farmhouse that's brimming with history. People have been living on here for 800 years. In days gone by, the fields around Wolverhampton would have been filled with crops and cattle and farm workers. And at the centre of this industrious way of life would have been the humble farmhouse. This one belongs to Graham and Jo Hughes. The question is, how old is their house? Which period does it belong to? That's what we're here to find out. Graham and Jo bought this ancient house 6 years ago, and it was in a pretty ramshackle state. To many property buyers, the message would have been clear: run a mile. But despite no experience of period property restoration, Graham and Jo felt this was their calling.
To us, houses talk to you, which probably sounds completely crazy. We'd always wanted an old property to do up. We came from a 3-bed semi, but it was like a 1970s property.
The dream was to find a house with character and age and a nice little parcel of land that was manageable.
And we wanted a quality of life that we weren't really going to get living in a 3-bed semi on an estate, really.
So they swapped their comfortable modern house for a building full of all sorts of quirks and features and a future of endless restoration. Over the years, many of those features have been masked by unsympathetic makeovers carried out by generations of farmers. The challenge now is to reveal them once again in all their glory.
We have a moat, we have cruciform beaming in the kitchen and the bedroom. So when you put those two together, that just makes this house totally different.
The family think we're crazy, but to us, it was, something that we just really felt enthusiastic and passionate about, to be honest. When you see the house standing behind the trees, we got immediately excited at things like the wood framing on the outside, even though it was completely rotten, needed replacing, which was one of the first jobs that we had to do. And we're gradually working our way through to try and strip it all back to what it should be.
Graham is managing this project himself. He's given up full-time employment to immerse himself into the work, whilst Jo teaches tax and law to bring home the bread that pays for the work.
Graham and I have known each other a long time. We met 20 years ago. I am very organised, I'm very structured, and Graham is not.
Because when we moved here, I'd got no idea at all about old houses. I knew I wanted to live in one. Without a massive knowledge of building, it was all very new to me. So quite happy to sit there and research, find out what needs doing, and then look at how to put that into practice.
And this is where the story slows down. You see, Graham likes to work at his own pace. In the past 6 years, they've completed work on a grand total of 2 rooms. But with a further 7 to go, well, you do the maths.
I think I initially said, 5 years and we'd probably have it done. You're starting to think I'm getting a little bit behind here.
I knew when we took on this house that it wasn't going to be done within a year or 2 years. The intention is that we will live in this property for the rest of our lives. I think, in a way, this will probably be our only restoration project, because I think this will be our life project.
Graham and Jo are clearly passionate about their home and restoring its many original features. Now, with a £10,000 budget, they're moving on to the next room in the house, and this time they've come up with a firm plan.
The project now is to convert the old bathroom into a bathroom and office for me. Joe set me some timescales to work to, and I feel that I'm going to be able to hit those. No problem.
We'll see, Graham. Joe has imposed a 3-month deadline on the project. With an average of 3 years per room so far, I'm placing my bets now. What a great place. Just walking through it straight away, it's just amazing. And I have to say, more amazing on the inside than the outside, probably.
Oh, absolutely, yes. There's very little of the way of original features on the outside.
Yeah.
But inside, when you come in, all the beamwork, etc.
Well, I think when the Conservation Officer came round and he said that there's only probably one other property in Staffordshire that has got this sort of beamwork.
Cruciform beaming.
Cruciform beaming.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
are you listed here?
No, we're not. The Conservation Officer, when he came in, was astounded that we weren't listed, but believed that when they did come and do listing, the people who were looking at the houses looked at the outside, saw the concrete roof tiles, the aluminium double glazing in the windows, and probably just drove off.
I'm not surprised. The modern brick skin on the outside of this house reveals nothing about its true age, but inside, it's a completely different story. Everywhere I turn, there are signs of this home's history. And upstairs is like stepping back in time. I wonder how old this stairwell is. Look at this room as well, the beams.
yeah, this was the bit that the Conservation Officer was talking about. If they'd come in to list it, this is the bit they probably would have listed it based on.
It's amazing, isn't it? But the next room they want to tackle has certainly seen better days. This is definitely not built for someone my size. That's amazing, isn't it? Oh, it's lovely and warm in here, isn't it not?
Yeah.
Flippin' heck, this is... I'm amazed this is still standing. And then these extraordinary windows.
Because when we moved in, these were all just completely blocked up. We thought, well, remove it, reinstate them as to how they were. So there's one on this side, and then there's one obviously on the other side that's going to go in as well.
So what are you going to do with this room then?
Well, we're going to split it into two so that I can have an office. I'm a very, very untidy person.
He spreads.
So
he needs containment.
Small office, less mess. Put up a stud wall down here with a shower just in there.
It's a bathroom?
Yeah, this will be like a small shower room for guests, yeah.
No, have it as a big bathroom. This would be amazing. Like these windows like that either side. You've got a beautiful window at this end, all the light streaming in. Make it a big bathroom.
Small office for me,
It's a
no
beautiful
mess.
shaped room. It seems such a shame to, because it's such a beautiful
You
room.
look like you're going to cry.
Like this. I really do think it would be a shame to split this room in two, but that's just me. In a room that's just 12 feet by 10, Graham and Joe plan to add a partition wall in order to create two new rooms. One will be a shower room, the other an office. They want to highlight the features in here, cleaning up the old beams and adding new ones. And they plan to reinstate windows more in keeping with the period by building bespoke wooden frames. But I do worry that they're trying to do too much in a small space, which ultimately could destroy the charm that's so apparent here. Amazing house, all kinds of weird bits and pieces all over the place. What would you like me to find out about the house?
I think a lot of the history, the actual age of the house, I've spent a lot of time researching how to do the work on it. I've not had time to do the real research on the house itself.
Because like once we know how old it is, or whether there have been houses put up, taken down, other houses put up, is, you know, sort of what would have happened here.
The fact that it has had hundreds of years of history.
There's some good stories here, I'm
Lots
sure.
of different people here.
I have a feeling they might be right. I often talk on Original Features about the number of lives that are lived, generations passing through in any one house. What's interesting to me about this particular house, I think it's had several lives. I'm convinced it's been built and knocked down and built and knocked down, and I'm not quite sure how many times. And all those amazing original features point towards a fascinating history. I mean, how many homes do you know have their own moat? few days later, Graham is off to an impressive start. The clear out of the room has begun, and first up, off comes the radiator.
So yeah, this is the place where, if we get it wrong, Joe's office becomes a swimming pool.
Graham wants to restore this room using original materials, so he's repairing the mortar and replacing the plaster with traditional lime. But before he can do any of that, he's got to deal with the hangover of 1950s plaster. Time for the power tools.
Quite often when you start doing this, you'll start knocking off bits from the front and find there's no back, or the back has deteriorated so much that it all crumbles and comes out as well. It's one of the problems of the modern material being put on it. It can be repaired. We can put some lime mortar back into that and all will be good.
It is a convincing start, but I still wish I could convince Graham and Joe to rethink their plans for this amazing old room. Coming up, Graham gets more than he bargained for. And I try to solve an intriguing mystery for Graham and Joe.
I mean, it really is that sort of corner of this much of the room, isn't it? Which is a lot of room for a chimney.
Are restoring their intriguing old farmhouse, which is packed with original features. After 6 years of living here, they've completed just 2 rooms. They now want to turn their attention to transforming this compact space into a shower room and small office. Graham has started in earnest, but his track record in speed leaves something to be desired.
People ask whether I'm organised or not when they come and visit us. I'm organised in a Graham sort of way.
In a bid to add a little structure to the project, Graham's wife Jo has suggested he try to complete the work in 3 months and on a £10,000 budget. But I have my own thoughts on their plans. I'm not sure partitioning a tiny space into 2 even smaller rooms is the best idea.
You can't split this room in 2. Don't split the room.
I wish they'd rethink and use the room for the beautiful period bathroom it deserves. Graham and Joe might not agree with me on everything, but one thing we do share is a view on working with the original fabric of this old building. Graham and Joe are keen to reintroduce traditional methods and materials, but before they can start bringing out those original features once again, there's a demolition project to be carried out. The 1950s plasterboard ceiling needs to come down, and Graham's just the man to do it.
The removing of the plaster is very dusty, but this is just filthy. Yeah, there's a lot of rubbish up here. It's not very nice working, but it'll be lovely when it's done. That's what you've got to keep thinking.
But in stripping out the new, the perfect incentive to keep going is waiting to be rediscovered. After years of being hidden, Graham has revealed some lovely original oak beams.
For the generations to come, I'm going to leave all the original features of the house in place so that the future generations, they can appreciate them just as we are now.
This house restoration is a labour of love for Graham. My passion is history, and this house clearly has plenty of that. So while Graham's immersing himself into beams and bricks, I'm off to meet our historical archaeologist, Cassie Newland.
History. Very excited about this.
Yeah,
For this
excellent
house?
Excellent house.
You
Very
think so?
interesting.
Good. So should we start with the oldest bit? What's the oldest bit of this house?
Oldest bit of the house isn't the house. It's over here.
Right. So I'm guessing it's the moat we're coming to talk about.
It is indeed. Our amazing moat.
All right, so importantly, how old?
Well, moats first start occurring really in about the 13th century.
But the house, plainly, is not 13th century. So are you saying that there was a house on this site before this house was here?
Yeah, almost certainly.
A manor house, a big important house, to be important enough to have a moat?
Well, yeah, a manor house for sort of minor gentry is what we need to be thinking about.
Right, but none of it left at the moment?
No, none of it left here.
All right, so should we go and have a look at the house and see what year that is? So this land has been the site of a house since the Middle Ages. Wow! And the moat suggests that the original dwelling would have been built for someone with a touch of class. So how old is the house here now, and does it follow that trend? Oh, now that's a surprise straight off, because I expected us to head to the kitchen. I thought that was the oldest bit.
Ah, no, this is the core of our 16th century house.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Timber frame, then?
Timber frame, yeah. And the big giveaway of why it's our 16th century core is this fireplace here.
It's very beautiful, isn't it?
It is very beautiful. It's not original.
It's not original?
It's not original, but the reason it's a giveaway is this beam goes into it, which means the house is not built to have a chimney like this. It was never built to have a brick chimney.
Hang on, so if it's got the chimney, how is that a giveaway that this is the oldest part of the house?
Because I know it must be in the place of a smoke hood. And smoke hoods first come in when people decide they don't want big open fires in their halls. And it allows you to have a second storey, like our house has got, and heat both parts of the house.
I can feel a date coming on. You've narrowed it down, haven't you?
Yeah, I think we're probably early 16th to mid 16th, so sort of 1525s, somewhere around there.
Oh, properly early then?
Yeah, properly early.
Well, the original house may no longer be here, but behind the more modern exterior of this one lurks a Tudor core. So where did the original structure exist?
If you go and stand in the door of the kitchen,
Yes?
and I will go and stand on the back wall here, this is our original core of our house. 2 rooms, 2 downstairs with 2 private rooms above it. You're on an exterior wall. Stairs weren't there. That little bit of hall, all included in that big room there, 2 large rooms.
So at that stage, at that era, to have a house this big with upstairs rooms and a smoke hood...
With a smoke hood and 2 storeys, yeah, this is minor gentry, this.
So it seems Graham and Joe have a very posh house on their hands. And it's had 2 major extensions in its life. During the 16th century, the kitchen and master bedroom were added, while a second extension in the early 18th century saw the addition of Joe's office and the room being restored. It was at the same time that the timber-framed house was covered in a brick skin. And there's some interesting evidence upstairs that proves how it was extended.
Now what this is how you join an extension to a house when you're making timber buildings. You have one that's standing up and it's a bit wonky and twisted because you build with green oak, and you make the next one as close as you can get it with the warp of the timbers allowing, and then you just join it up, plaster it over and hope no one notices.
Very interesting. You like this architecturally and historically. You like this a lot, don't
It
you?
sits very nicely.
Is it exciting when you find something like this?
Mostly it's very puzzling for the first 3 times you look at it, and you sit at home with pens and papers going, oh, I don't understand, and turning it 3 ways up. And then when you finally work out what's happening, it's very beautiful. It's like puzzles coming together.
Graham and Joe's house deserves some time and care, and that's exactly what it's getting. A week later, Graham has gone off-site for some tuition in restoring a fundamental feature of the room. His father-in-law, John, is a master carpenter with over 40 years' experience in woodwork, so he's helping Graham build traditional windows, and he's teaching Graham a thing or 2 along the way.
You need to cut just to the side of that.
Oh, right, yeah, I see.
It's a huge boost to the project having Joe's dad on hand to do the work, and keeping it in the family means they'll be saving money too.
You know, it's only when you're doing things like this where you know you've got specialist windows. It does need the craftsman, and a good job really. Don't really want to pack up just yet.
A house like Graham and Joe's needs traditional wooden windows. If Graham can pick up the skills from John, he can replicate these frames all over the house eventually, but one step at a time.
This is quite tricky and obviously all new for me, and I'm just learning. I think the work, slow but sure.
Graham's apprenticeship is underway, and there's nothing like some family feedback to keep you grounded.
Only just starting, and I mean, no apprentice is good. Don't get above your station, look what you're doing, and don't think you know it all in 5 minutes.
Just like doing up an old house. With every turn, there's something new to learn or discover, and if you're lucky, sometimes the odd mystery. And back at the house, Graham and Joe have their own mystery they're keen to show me.
This wall here,
Yeah?
if you look at how thick it is, we know that there's a chimney in there.
Yes.
But when you look at sort of the size of the chimney, the length of the wall, the thickness, it looks like there could be something else hiding away in there.
The farmer said that he thought there might be a priest hole lurking in there somewhere.
So what the devil is a priest hole, I hear you cry? During Elizabeth I's reign, Catholicism was outlawed in England. Hunted priests needed somewhere to hide, and sympathetic Catholics found clever spaces within their houses that did just the job. Now that we know this old house existed on the land here during that period, Graham and Joe's theory might just be plausible.
Now that's interesting because the chimney up here, the chimney stack, or what's left of it, because it's been cut off. I wonder whether this was the kind of place that they needed to hide out.
A priest hole would be a pretty incredible original feature for their house to have. I need to get Cassie back on the case. Coming up, can a verdict be reached once and for all?
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
And there's a U-turn in Graham and Joe's plans.
Now sort of visualising what it's going to look like, I'm thinking, you know what, I think actually I perhaps will have the odd luxurious bath.
Graham and Joe Hughes are lovingly restoring their centuries-old Staffordshire farmhouse. They're transforming a small space in their huge home. The room they're restoring might be small, but the building's history is turning out to be vast.
Oldest bit of the house isn't a house.
And has thrown up the odd mystery along the way.
I wonder whether this was the kind of place that they needed to hide out.
6 weeks into the 3-month project, and Graham has nearly prepared the shell of the room for the next phase of work and given the old timber framework the MOT it deserves.
I think it's only fair on the house to spend a bit of time finding out what you should do to it to make sure that you don't do any lasting damage, and we've got to put a new piece in.
Graham and Joe plan to divide this space into a shower room and office, but I'm still not convinced that this is the right way forward, and I worry that a wrong decision will be something they'll regret for years to come.
I think, in a way, this will probably be our only restoration project, because I think this will be our life project.
This room has been exposed to the elements for months, but today's the day Graham and father-in-law John are finally fitting the timber framework for the new windows.
We're going to put the lintel in, which is a nice piece of oak, nice and solid.
At a cost of £950 for the materials, it's costing twice the price of UPVC windows, but money is being saved on the labour by keeping it in the family. With the lintels in place, this old room is once again strong enough to support the ceiling, so Graham and John turn their attention to installing the new handcrafted oak beams.
All of these rafters are the old original ones, but as you can see they've rotted away and they're not actually being used anymore. New ones have been put in place.
Graham is making the most of having a master craftsman in the family. By carving wooden pegs to tie the wood together, they're not only using a traditional technique that looks great, they're allowing these new beams to move, flex and settle in with old wood that's been here for centuries.
Right, now that we've knocked the pegs in, we need to cut the ends off. It wouldn't be any good if we had these pegs stuck up.
He's my apprentice, you see, so I've got to give him work to do.
The original look of this room is now beginning to form, and as I hoped, it's made Graham and Joe take another look at their plans for this space.
The options are the shower room office or big bathroom, opulent, posh, luxurious.
Yeah, I think we can go with the bathroom idea.
Yeah,
Yeah. Does this mean Nick will be like smug?
probably.
Not so much smug, more relieved that they've come round to my way of thinking and decided to go for one larger bathroom instead. The only issue now, of course, is kitting it all out on their £10,000 budget. Before Graham and Joe ponder their new dilemma, I'm back to investigate the possibility that they may be the owners of a priest hole. I've been doing my research and I've got something interesting to show them. Just a few miles up the road is Moseley Old Hall, an old building that shares a few architectural traits with Graham and Joe's house. And for 2 days in the 17th century, the destiny of Britain hung in the balance within its walls.
1651's the year. The country's in turmoil. The King Charles I has been executed. Charles II has gone away to France. He's now come back with a 16,000 strong army to retake the crown. But unfortunately, things aren't going well. In a huge battle just outside Worcester, Cromwell's army annihilates the 16,000 strong Charles II army, and as a result, he's on the run. 5 days later, he turns up here at this very door.
Fortunately for Charles, Moseley Old Hall had a priest hole, which turned out to be the perfect place to hide a king.
So in behind here is a little cupboard where presumably the priest, who was deliberately put there as a decoy, but the king was in here as well. You see? I know. Have a look. Here's the clever thing.
My goodness.
Yeah. Now, if I just move that out of the way, I'm going to climb down, and then you can have a look inside. Get out of the way. Now, for those of you at home who'd like to see, perhaps you'd like to pass me the camera, and you'll realise this is going to be not the prettiest shot you've ever seen, because it's difficult to get you in here, but you can see me here, and then inside, this is what we're looking at.
Plenty of room for supplies and things like that, isn't it? So we could quite easily stay in there for quite some time.
That's your priest hole. This one's a bit excessive because it's also a king's hiding place,
Yeah.
but what do you think, having seen that, now, with what you think your space might be?
Well, I think there is room to actually fit one in. I really do.
Well, Graham and Joe are convinced they have a priest hole, but I think this new discovery is definitely one for Cassie.
Wow. Do you think you could live down there?
I think it'd make a nice office.
Would it?
From one puzzling space in the house to another, now that Graham and Joe have made the excellent decision to turn their upstairs room into a luxury bathroom, they need to find a period bath on a budget, which is proving to be a tricky task. With tax law lecturer Joe busy bringing home the bacon, she's had to hand over the task into Graham's capable hands. Reclamation yards can represent huge savings, but if you've got expensive tastes like Graham, their budget could fast be heading down the plug hole.
This is an interesting looking
Yes,
bath.
it is. It is a Victorian copper bath.
Uh-huh.
Got a really nice detailed feet on them.
It seems that when it comes to bathing, period means pricey. Until the 1800s, bathing was a functional necessity, rather than the ultimate pampering pleasure it is today. The Victorians changed this, introducing ornate tubs, so baths from this period are now very collectible and rare.
What sort of price, is this bath?
You're looking at 4,600 for this bath.
Time to reassess, Graham. But there are options. Getting an old bath and re-enamelling it might be more realistic.
Worth having a look at. I don't know whether that's the sort of thing that might be of interest to you. If it is, as it stands there, £100.
Yeah. Okay.
Meanwhile, back at the house, Cassie and I are getting technical, investigating the mysterious gap in the chimney breast upstairs. The question is, could it have been a priest hole?
So you've got this chimney here that's on a diagonal,
Yeah.
if you can see, and then this one that comes in at 130 is square. So the only bit that we're really missing below that can be void is this sort of triangle that would square that up in the room.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
That does make sense.
Not enough room, really, for a well-fed priest. Or
Not really.
So that big structure downstairs in the bedroom is, in fact, the chimneys. No priest hole. What a shame. Onwards and upwards, though. I've been researching this house's history, and there's plenty to tell in order to bring Graham and Joe up to speed.
The oldest part of your house is, in fact, not your house at all.
Okay.
It's the moat.
All right, yeah.
The moat itself, we think, dates from the 13th century.
Wow, gosh.
Is it?
Yeah. So people have been living on here for 800 years.
Yeah.
Which is probably the oldest habitation that we've actually dealt with on Original Features.
Good grief.
For the rest of the history of your house and the house that you actually live in now, we'll probably pop inside and sit and have a cup of coffee and a chat, shall we?
Yep, great.
Come on then.
Cassie revealed that this house has been the seat of wealthy gentry farmers through the ages. It seems that land was where the money lay and that farming was a source of big income. It would have funded the build of this house, which back then was a very grand dwelling.
Many rural homes were actually being improved or developed or rebuilt, which is essentially what happens here. They build a much posher house and then they extend it again within 30 years. So there's obviously plenty of money coming in. So this makes the house here Tudor.
It's an old house.
Well, it is really, isn't it? When you
It
think
is,
about it.
yeah. I mean, we knew it was old.
Yeah, that's
But-
incredible, isn't it?
450 years.
So that big beam up there has been there for that whole period of time.
Our research goes back as far as the late 1500s, when the Everton family were in residence here. And a magistrate record shows they appear to have had a rather checkered past.
We have some information from 1594. The old document makes reference to a rather nasty incident at Westcroft Farm.
Ooh.
Some goings on. Richard Wilkes, husbandman, for breaking into the dwelling house of Edward Everton, Gent, 24th of April, 1594, and for assault and battery upon Joan Beeston, spinster, there.
Ooh. Do we know who Joan Beeston was in relation to Edward
Probably a
Everton?
domestic servant.
Right.
Criminal activity aside, the Everton family remained on this land, both farming crops and extending this house. They clearly had the money to show off their wealth, and the house was proudly passed from generation to generation. It was then sold to a second wealthy family who were also keen to put their stamp on the place with a further extension, and they have a direct connection with Graham and Joe today.
In 1676, it's taken over by a guy by the name of Henry Vernon.
All right.
Ah, because the Vernons have got quite a lot of land.
They keep it until the 1950s.
Yeah.
And we've actually, just last year, bought an acre of woodland off them.
Have you really?
Yeah, just down by the M54 junction.
The family also held the manor of Hilton north of Essington and resided at Hilton Park Hall.
Yeah.
That all makes sense?
Yeah.
And you just bought an acre of land
Yeah.
off them.
Yeah.
You're slowly taking over. It's taking 400 years, but you're slowly eating away at their estate, aren't you?
Come on, the Hugheses.
You know, another 400 years, the Hugheses could own all of it as far as the eye could see. That's fantastic.
The Vernons eventually rented the land to several families over the years, so the house remained untouched for over a century. But there's an uncanny connection I found between Joe and one of the tenants on the land.
In the 18th century, the occupier of the house was Richard Bradburn, the parish tax collector.
And how freaky a tax lecturer then moves into.
Isn't he extraordinary? I mean, it's actually somebody who's collecting tax that pays for the renovation in those days, and now it's a specialist in tax who's paying for the renovation.
These days.
Yeah.
It seems that everybody who comes into possession of this house has been fortunate enough to be able to make their mark on it. Graham and Joe are certainly staying true to that form today.
Having heard the history, how does it feel to be at the end of such an extraordinarily long line of people living in this house who've obviously loved and
Well,
lived?
hopefully we're not at the end of that long line. We're just part of the journey. We're looking after it for the future generations as well.
It's a rewarding experience uncovering the history of the house you live in, and you never know what connections you may come across.
If you're interested in uncovering the history of your home and you need some advice, go to lovehome.co.uk.
2 months into the project, and with the structural work complete, Graham is now focusing his attention on the flooring. The plan is to have oak floorboards, but being a bathroom, they will definitely come in contact with water. So Graham has had to do his research.
I'm just treating this floor with some linseed oil. The more we protect the wood, the longer it will last.
Linseed oil is wood's best friend. It stops it drying out and provides a water-resistant barrier, so it's perfect for a bathroom floor. Graham's making great progress, and with the help of father-in-law John, the handcrafted wooden framed windows are now ready to go in.
41.5.
John's attention to detail has paid off. The windows fit like a glove.
Hold your top and I'll push the bottom in.
But within this 400-year-old structure, nothing is straight.
It's stood here for hundreds of years. It's started to droop like any old woman, really, hasn't it?
Graham's got such a way with words.
There we go. We have windows in.
And windows need latches. Keen to put their own personal stamp on this house, Graham and Joe are spending some quality time together with a visit to blacksmith Bill Burns. It seems that weeks of being John's apprentice is paying off. Graham now has the confidence to turn his hand to any trade these days.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
And Joe's keen to have a go at making some window fittings too.
That's fine, Joe, just switch off. Very good.
Wow, look at
The
that.
difference in that.
Gosh.
It's come out beautifully.
Having made something that's going to be in the house, hopefully, well, for as long as we're going to be there, and
hopefully longer.
longer, sat there in those bubbles in the bath, looking at the window furniture and going, I actually made that.
I mean, we love our house. We think it's very special, and I think it sort of adds to the specialness about it.
It does.
Is that a word?
It is now, Joe, and the specialness continues with more traditional craftsmanship. Julie Haddo is here to lime plaster the walls. This ancient technique is still the preferred method of choice for plastering old houses.
You do pay more for it, but it will last a lot longer and make your building last a lot longer with less damp problems. It's more organic, it's softer, it's got a sort of a glow to it, and people do sort of sense the difference.
Wow, this is coming on a bit early.
Yes, it's looking really different with a coat of plaster on, isn't it?
It is.
Looks like a room again.
Graham's pleased with the look, but needs advice on an area by the window that looks like its original lime plaster.
Yes, I think it's contemporary, probably with the window, with the building. I would keep it on show. It's a shame there's not more to keep, but I think it's an important piece of history, really.
Coming up, Joe takes charge of the interior design.
Graham will probably readily admit to anybody that he's not very colour coordinated.
And I return to see if my persuasion paid off. Oh, yes!
Problem in any house is likely to be wrapped within these walls.
Home's newest resident gets thrown in at the property deep end.
So the building will collapse?
Yes.
It gets worse and worse and worse.
Beanie on Home starts Tuesday the 26th of March with Restoration Nightmare, new to home.
Nationwide home insurance, on your side.
In the heart of rural Staffordshire, Graham and Joe Hughes have been painstakingly restoring a room in the core of this old farmhouse into a rustic bathroom. And they've been learning some fascinating history about their house along the way. It's now over 2 months into the planned 3-month project, and Graham's hard work is really coming to fruition. In just a few days' time, the bathroom will be ready to fit the furniture, and the focal point will be the bath. Graham and Joe wanted an antique bath, but the costs were proving prohibitive. So Graham found the solution by seeking out an old bath in need of some TLC at a local reclamation yard.
So we sent it off, had it shot blasted on the outside to remove all the old paint, and totally re-enamelled on the inside.
You know, his have-a-go attitude has really paid off. At a total cost of £800 to restore the old bath, it's a fraction of the price of Victorian antique alternatives. Now he just needs to give it a lick of paint. Interesting colour choice, by the way.
Maybe a little pinker than I first anticipated by the colour chart, but my wife tells me that this is the colour that I want.
Fair enough. And while Graham is carrying out the wife's orders, Joe is forging ahead with the interior design details, visiting a local antiques dealer to splash the cash on a few items fit for a period bathroom.
Something like this is reproduction.
Yes, it is, but you were talking about putting it into your bathroom, so I think a reproduction mirror is going to suit you a lot better than using an antique.
Right.
Because with the steam and the condensation, an antique mirror is just not going to last at all.
Okay, so something like this.
Which is a resin-based frame.
Okay.
Going to last you as long as you need it.
Right, okay, excellent.
That's great advice. And back at the house, Graham is in need of a helping hand to heave his newly painted, reclaimed bath upstairs to the room in question. Plumber Phil has drawn that short straw.
OK then, Phil, bath's here, all painted, ready to go.
Great.
I'm not sure how we're going to get it upstairs. OK.
Yep.
Made from cast iron, this old bath is more than 5 times the weight of modern acrylic models. They didn't believe in lightweight back in those days.
Oh, that's good.
And we'll get the feet on.
Feet on.
Get in position.
Yeah.
It's all very well having a lovely sturdy bath as the focal point of the room, but if you're considering investing in one, you may need to think about reinforcing your floor to take the weight. And remember, with a bath full of water, it'll be even heavier. The effort has paid off. With bath in place, Graham and Joe are now in sight of having a luxury bathroom fit for this wonderful old farmhouse.
Graham and Joe's original plan for the room they're renovating was to split it into 2 and make an office on one side and a toilet and shower room on the other. But I wasn't so sure that was the best idea, and under encouragement from me, they decided to make one big family bathroom. So I'm quite keen today to find out whether it's worked and whether they're pleased that they changed direction.
3 months ago, this sorry state of a room lay exposed to the elements, and there was debate over its fate. With the space now transformed into a luxury bathroom, will my persuasive efforts have paid off?
I think you will be pleasantly surprised when you go
when
in.
you're planning something and you have a picture in your mind of what it's going to look like.
Yes.
And then it exceeds that.
You're selling it big.
It is. Get in there and have a look.
Here we go then.
Watch your head.
Oh, yes!
What a difference! Graham and Joe's attention to detail all came together to produce a room that is now entirely fitting with this house, yet practical at the same time. But not only that, Graham must feel an amazing sense of achievement knowing that throughout this project he's remained true to the original fabric of the building.
It was a choice that we made to follow that route. Very expensive in comparison to doing it normally, but all the better for the house. Again, going for the fact that hopefully in another 500 years' time somebody will be able to sit here and appreciate the fact that we took some time over looking after it so it stays standing.
Also, the sort of juxtaposition of the old style bath, which is the one you got from the reclamation yard.
That's right.
Which has come up beautiful. This is the re-enamel one.
Yes, yeah, it went off and it was properly vitreous enamelled. So
But it is, it's fabulous. Really, really good.
It's beautiful. Really lovely. These windows.
Yeah.
You've got to be chuffed with these because you had, I mean, that original window shape, which was so beautiful, which you've managed to hold on to.
Yeah, you can just about see the old lime plaster that was there has been retained there so that if anybody takes the paint off, they can actually see the very old original lime plaster was there.
Good.
And they've plastered up to it.
A lot of woodwork to do actually when you look around with the, you know, the beams, the floor, the sills, you know, and something you've been doing with the father-in-law.
It is, yes, yeah. I've learnt all about different undercutting and beveling and all sorts.
Were you a good apprentice?
I think so, yes, yeah.
I'd like to think so. You sort of vaguely thought it might cost £10,000. How much has this bathroom cost you?
Well, can't say in front of Joe. All in all, I think by the time everything's done, it's going to be approaching 15. But I mean, the lime plastering was just over £4,000.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest costs.
Yeah.
The whole thing kind of ties together. You must be chuffed that you've now got this. I mean, an evening sat in there in a bubble bar, a few candles around, glass of wine, and you were going to have this split into 2 rooms.
I know. It's now it's done. I think I can see myself sat in the bath.
I think it does lend itself. I think we have made the right decision to keep it as an opulent bathroom.
You just got to find somewhere else to put you.
From the handcrafted windows to bespoke latches and a real eye for design, this room is now fit for a king. Speaking of which, before I depart, I want to give Graham and Joe a little reminder of the royalty that passed right by this old house, giving it a real place in history.
I'm going to make my makeup run.
Look, this is his escape route.
Thank you
That
very
is
much.
really, really...
Charles II's escape route by your house, or round your house.
Oh, isn't that?
That is really nice.
So we thought that might sit nicely somewhere around the house, possibly in the bathroom even. There you go.
That is lovely. Really, really, really lovely.
I'm going to say
Nearly.
I'm going to let myself out. You stay and have a look at that.
That's brilliant.
And thank you once again.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Isn't that just fabulous?
Looking at this house from the outside, its history is hidden behind its brick skin. But watching this process of restoration has proven that inside, the house is like a time capsule, fabulously and lovingly preserved. And the decision to use this space to its full potential has surely helped.
I think if they'd have gone for an office and a bathroom, they would have had to have masked all the features. As it is, by keeping it as a single room, it's exactly the bathroom that should be in there. Don't you think?
For top advice on researching the history of your home and decorating period properties, just visit our website lovehome.co.uk.